So the other thing then that I wanted just to bring to your attention real quickly is a thing called foreshadowing. It's just a concept in editing, and it's really very easy to do. And I'll tell you the purpose of it. First of all, let me define it for you. Foreshadowing, all right? And we're going to concentrate here on audio foreshadowing that I'm going to demonstrate in just a minute. And what an audio foreshadow is nothing more than hearing a voice before you see who that voice belongs to, okay? So it's a foreshadow. In other words, beforehand, the coming of something before something else. Well, in this case, it's the coming of the audio before we see the person who is speaking, okay? Audio foreshadowing. And it's a very simple technique, and I'll show you, as I said, how it's done. But I need you to understand why it's done. And audio foreshadowing is a great technique because in television and video production, if you can change one element at a time, okay, it's going to make a much smoother transition for the viewer. It will be far less abrupt than changing two elements at a time. When I'm talking about elements, I'm talking about the only two that we have, audio and video. All right? So when you're editing and you're working with audio and video, if you change one of those elements, and in this case it will be the audio, if you change one of those before you change the other one, okay, it makes for a much smoother transition. And that's the purpose of an audio foreshadow. So in other words, you're foreshadowing for the viewer the fact that they're about to see somebody, but before they see them, you let them hear that person first so that it doesn't all change at once, so that it's not the audio and the video changing simultaneously, because that can be abrupt. So you sort of ease the viewer into the transition, and you do it with that audio foreshadow of letting the voice be heard before the person's face is seen, all right? And it's very, very easy to do. Here's what I mean. So again, audio foreshadowing now is nothing more than foreshadowing or bringing in the audio before we see the video that it goes with. And again, we're talking about a person's voice. So what we're really saying is audio foreshadowing is hearing the person's voice before we see the person who's speaking. And again, this is a very simple concept. Let me reiterate again that the reason we do this is to change one element between the audio and the video, to change one element at a time to make the transition smoother for the viewer and much less abrupt. So again, it's very simple to do. What I've got here is, first of all, I've got this video, which is just basically a clip of that's really already edited. It's a clip of some B-roll with the natural sound and with a voice track, all right? And basically what you're going to see is, as I play it, let me do that right now. As I play it, what you're going to see is it's sort of an introduction to one particular player. So this was actually taken from a package that was a profile story on a volleyball player at BGSU several seasons ago. But again, as I play this, what you'll hear is that it's basically an introduction to that player. So here it is.
Dunn is easy to spot on the court. One reason is because she plays libero.
So it's talking about this particular player and her position.
But Dunn also stands out because of her play.
And it talks about why she stands out, about what makes her such a good player, all right? So now, again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to foreshadow her voice so that I'm going to bring in her voice before we actually cut to her to see her as she's speaking. And I do have her soundbite. It's right here, okay? So all I'm going to do again is just set it up so that you'll hear her voice under this B-roll before you actually see her face. But let's start with the actual soundbite itself and where I want it to begin. So there's a little bit here in the beginning that I'm going to cut away. I'm just going to play this for you. And again, there's probably a couple of seconds that I'd want to get rid of before we actually begin the soundbite.
The honor itself.
All right, so that's the question that's being asked.
But I definitely couldn't do it without the rest of my team.
All right, so that's actually where I want to start it. So as we listen to it again,
I'm very honored, but I definitely couldn't do it without the rest.
I definitely couldn't do it. That's going to be my in my in cue to the soundbite. That's where I want the soundbite to begin, okay? So let's cut away the rest of it. And she actually pauses very nicely. She's going to say and then she's going to pause.
But
right there. And that's going to be the beginning of my soundbite. So I'm going to cut the rest of that away. Cut away the portion in the beginning here that I really don't need and don't want. And after I do that, then my soundbite is going to start with...
I definitely couldn't do it without the rest of my team, if it weren't for especially our...
Okay, so that's where we want it. And now the idea is we want to begin the voice before we see the person speaking. All right, in order to do this, we're going to need 2 video tracks. We're going to need video 1 and video 2. And of course, likewise, that will correlate to audio 1 and audio 2. All right, so you know, but basically, again, when you're working with Adobe Premiere, you know that the top video track is the one that is seen first, the top video track. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this clip here, which is again the B-roll, and I'm going to move it into video 2 because we want it seen before we actually see the player. All right? So now because I did that, what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to move the audio as well. All right, and as you can see right now, the audio is in A1 right here, but I'm going to move it down so that the audio will be in A2 and so that it will correspond now. I have my video in V2 and I have my audio in A2. So I want those two working together. Then this is the soundbite, and this I can keep together. It's now currently in video 1, in the video 1 track, with the audio in the audio 1 track. So that can stay just as it is. And then as I move it over, okay, I'm going to be able, obviously, to mix some of that sound. All right, so again, now the point is, I want that soundbite to start right at the end of the voice track that we have here in the beginning on this clip. So let's just go ahead and play this clip again.
Wears a different colored jersey for substitutions. But Dunn also stands out because of her play.
All right, also stands out because of her play. That's where she's going to start to speak. So let me cue that back up.
Jersey for substitutions. But Dunn also stands out because of her play.
There it is, okay? So right where my cursor line is where I want my audio to begin. That's where I want the audio to start to foreshadow who's going to be speaking. All right, so I'm going to just simply slide over this clip of the soundbite right to where my cursor line is, or my scrub line, I should say, right to where the scrub line is. And now I've got it. And you can see, hopefully, and again, I know the view is not as good as it would be in the classroom, but hopefully you can see where these overlap. So in other words, the video of the B-roll of the game action is just slightly overlapped with the beginning of the soundbite. And that is what is going to create our audio foreshadow. So if we look at it right now and play it, what we should hear is the voice track, which is my voice, okay, that should stop. And when that stops, then we should hear the voice of the person speaking, the player, and then after a few seconds of hearing her, we should see her. But we should hear the player's voice initially under the B-roll of the game action. And I'm sure that's exactly what we're going to see. So here we go.
For substitutions. But Dunn also stands out because of her play.
Without the rest of my team, if it weren't for especially our blocker, block has been doing amazing.
Okay, that was it. Not too smooth because Adobe decided it was going to be a little jittery there. But let's see if we can get it to actually play smoothly.
But Dunn also stands out because of her play.
I definitely couldn't do it without the rest of my team, if it weren't for especially our
So there it
blocker,
is.
block has been doing amazing, and they...
So again, the idea is that we just simply bring in the person's voice we bring in the person's voice under some B-roll, let that voice get established for just a few seconds, anywhere from, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 seconds, just enough to indicate to the viewer that, hey, somebody is talking, we're about to see that person, and then we cut to them. So let me play it one more time real quickly here. Hopefully it won't flutter again, and you'll get the idea.
But Dunn also stands out because of her play.
I definitely couldn't do it without the rest rest of my team if it weren't for especially our blocker block.
That's it. So it's as easy as using the 2 video and audio channels. And again, you just simply have to keep in mind that the top track is always seen first. So that's going to be your video. That's going to be, again, in this case, your B-roll. And then under that, in V1, after the B-roll stops, Adobe will cut to what's in V1, what's in the video 1 track, and that will be the soundbite. So it works very well. We just need to have the B-roll and the soundbite overlap just a little bit, and that is what creates our audio foreshadow.